Good morning. Welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose. It's great to see you here today on this beautiful holiday weekend. And let us continue to breathe deeply and allow ourselves to be still and know, centering into that place of blessedness as we listen to the words of our sacred reading.
I have decided to stick with love by Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm concerned about a better world. I'm concerned about justice. I'm concerned about brotherhood and sisterhood. I'm concerned about truth. And when one is concerned about that, he can never advocate violence. For through violence you may murder a murderer, but you can't murder murder. Through violence you may murder a liar, but you can't establish truth. Through violence you may murder a hater, but you can't murder hate through violence. Darkness cannot put out darkness. Only light can do that. And I say to you, I have decided to stick with love. For I know that love is ultimately the only answer to humankind's problems. And I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go. I know it isn't popular to talk about it in some circles today. And I'm not talking about emotional bosh when I talk about love. I'm talking about a strong, demanding love. For I have seen too much hate. And I say to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to love. If you are seeking the highest good, I think you can find it through love. And the beautiful thing is that we aren't moving wrongly when we do it. Because John was right, God is love. He who hates does not know God. But he who loves has the key that unlocks the door to the meaning of ultimate reality.
And so it is. And so we breathe into this essence of love, this power, this presence, this ultimate reality, into these eloquent words that were so beautifully written and so beautifully spoken. And as we sing together, I am remembering who I am. We remember that I am is another name for God, and I am is also another name for love. Resting in the love of God as the love of God. Let us breathe in deeply. And exhale, opening our eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is.
If ever I was called to lead the masses, what kind of a revolution would I lead? Before I change the world and take some action, I'd have to change the world inside of me. Now everyone has got their own opinions on how to rearrange the other woman and man. But if we see the things we have in common, Perhaps we drop our fists and lend a hand. 'Cause just like Martin, we have a dream. And just like Gandhi, we want peace. Like Mother Teresa, we want love. God grant us courage to rise above. Many dreamers paved the way before us, and yet it seems that we have just begun. If we could look beyond into the future, tell me, what will the people say that we have done? 'Cause just like Martin, we have a dream. And just like Gandhi, we want peace. Like Mother Teresa, we want love. God grant us courage to rise above. The key to our future is within our hands. Let's join together in every land, 'cause just like Martin, we have a dream, and just like Gandhi, we want peace. Like Mother Teresa, we want love. God grant us courage to rise above. Just like Martin, we have a dream, and just like Gandhi, we want peace. Like Mother Teresa, we want love. God grant us courage to rise above. God grant us courage to rise, everybody. Show your love. Don't stop. God bless you.
you. Oh. Thank you. Seriously, what else is there to say? Oh, goodness. Tina. And Hugh. Oh, wow. It's amazing. Thank you, Tina. It's amazing. Okay, we're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous. I have a really silly story to tell you. Annette knows this story because she was there. Sort of. I was in the San Francisco airport, and I was flying back from the East Coast, and it had been a long trip, and I was waiting in the airport, and Annette texted me some business about the church, something mundane, and I wrote back what I thought was the answer, and I said to her, by the way, I'm getting ready to get on a plane that looks like a flying pencil. You know the type? Those little skinny planes that have one seat on one aisle and one seat on the other aisle. They have little propellers. They look like something some kid pulled out of a toy chest, and they're liable to lurch around at any puff of air. So I wrote that about the pencil to Annette, and she wrote back to me what I thought was a brilliant response. She wrote back, "Be the pencil." Let's hear it for Annette. Be the pencil. What does that mean? Well, I thought it might mean to kind of embrace what was happening, to be one with the treacherous plane that was putting the fear of God in me, to be at one with the lurching and the buffeting and the wind and the takeoff and the landing, to be at one with my own fears and concerns, to be at one with my anxiety. I decided to try it, thinking that it might have a positive impact on my trip. You don't really want to say impact when you're talking about plane travel, by the way. A positive effect on my trip from San Francisco to Burbank. So I did. I decided to be the pencil, to be at one with everything, to welcome everything that happened, to befriend the reality of being on this little tiny plane and everything that was coming up in me because of it. And you know what? It worked. It was a lovely trip. So that became a metaphor for me. Because isn't sometimes flying around on the planet Earth like flying on a treacherous little plane that rocks and rivets and does all kinds of weird things? Aren't we sometimes buffeted by the winds of change and impermanence? And sometimes we feel sad and we feel sick. What if, like being the pencil, we could embrace everything? What if we could befriend everything? And the greatest way that I know to befriend everything is to make the choice to become a blessing, to be the blessing that we wish to see in the world, to be a blessing in all things. That's the name of my talk today, is Be the Blessing. Be the blessing. To be a blessing in all things, to be a blessing in the things that we like and the things that we don't like. To be a blessing with our families, with our coworkers, with the people that irritate us. To be a blessing when we go to the grocery store, when we go to work, when we come to church, when we walk down the street, when we go to the mechanics, when our car breaks down. To make that commitment to be a blessing in everything. To stand up and shine our light, no matter what. To love as God loves, and also to love how God loves, which is to fall in love with everything. Are we willing to be a blessing? Let's find out. Some of you may wonder what being a blessing really means. What is it to bless? To bless means to endow with good. And I think that being a blessing means endowing with good, certainly. It means having the vision to see the good in everything, to call forth the good in everything, to claim the good in everything. And it also means the willingness to stand in the power of good and declare something good even when it isn't. You know, at the end of the meditation, when I say to be in love with what is, that doesn't mean you're sending it Valentine's. It means that you are in a state of love with what is, even if you don't like it. We stand in a state of love with what is so that we can be that blessing in the world, that we can be the blessing that we are seeking. And as Dr. King said in that beautiful reading that Hugh did, to love is to be a blessing, and being in love unlocks the key to the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality that is love, that is God, that is the ultimate reality that we are all seeking. Behind all of our wanting, behind all of our craving, behind all of our lusting and seeking, all of that is the quest for love, for intimate love with the divine. With the divine within us, with the divine around us, with the divine in everything. The good news is that we all have the equipment to be the blessing. The bad news is we don't always use it. So I was thinking about the word blessing and thinking about how so often we do the opposite of what we are called to do here as spiritually evolving beings on the planet Earth, and I was thinking about the word cursing. Blessing and cursing kind of go together. They're part of the paradoxes of the words of Jesus. Bless those who curse you, right? When I was thinking about the word cursing, I was moved to look up some comedic curses on the internet. Seems like cursing is a global activity. This is one that I think is American. It says, may the bluebird of happiness take careful aim when he flies over your head. Another one that feels probably Middle Eastern to me is, may an unkempt yak sit on your dinner. I'm trying not to make eye contact with anyone when I'm saying these. This one feels Russian to me, and it's particularly gross. That's why I'm sharing it. May a drunken peasant drive a cartload of potatoes up both of your scabby nostrils. Ow is right. Who said ow? Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of them. Google them. They're hilarious. They're great. So the thing is that, if we're called to bless, we sometimes do the opposite, which is curse. I doubt that any of us are literally cursing reality. I don't think anybody has recently wished an unkempt yak to sit on somebody's... Peter, have you done that recently? Okay. Good to know. All right. Well, maybe. Okay. But the thing is that we are sometimes living as if we are cursed, as if life is a curse, as if life is against us. Sometimes we feel victimized by what happens. Sometimes we feel victimized by circumstances, by conditions. Sometimes we feel, as I said before, buffeted by the winds of change and impermanence. Sometimes we feel beset upon by birth, death, and decay, a catchy title to something that David gave me to read one time. Woo! We feel beset upon by birth, death, and decay. We feel that life is somehow against us. And our response to that is to turn against life. In that beautiful reading where Dr. King said that you can use violence to murder a murderer, but you can't murder, right? You can't use darkness to drive out darkness. You have to turn on the light. So often our response to feeling victimized and cursed by life, and feeling that life is against us, is to respond by pushing against life, by resisting it, by falling prey to the curse of worry or the curse of complaining or the curse of criticism, criticizing ourselves or others. All kinds of curses. You know how you are. You know how we are, right? All kinds of things. All kinds of things that go on in our heads when something feels like it's not right, when something feels like it's against us. And one of the beautiful things about this teaching is that we know that it's not about, as Tina said in her song, it's not about rearranging the world out there, it's about rearranging the world in here. In This Thing Called You, this beautiful book by Ernest Holmes that we're featuring this month, he talks about how our good is standing right before us, and the only thing between us and our good is a thing of thought. And a thing of thought is something that can be easily changed. And then he goes on to say that we do not change reality, we change our reaction to reality. Another way that we tend to curse ourselves and tend to be in the energy of curse and being in the energy of against is that we postpone our good. We say, when this happens, then I will be happy. If only I could change this thing about my life, then I will be abundant. If only my health gets better, then I will be vital and whole and complete. right? We use that thing that I call when-then thinking. When this happens, then I will be complete, then I will be happy, then I will be whole. That's postponing our good, postponing our blessedness until tomorrow. And in this thing called you, Ernest Holmes says that there are no tomorrows in divine mind. Your tomorrow is simply more of God's today. So the question is what are you going to do with God's today? God's today that already belongs to you. God's today that has already called you to be a blessing. I read a story written by somebody on the internet recently, somebody who decided to be a blessing in a bigger way. This is someone that I met online last summer when I was taking a course from Nipun Mehta. Many of you are familiar with him. He comes and speaks at the church about once a year, and he's what I call a very understated kindness guru. He has all kinds of honors. He's been awarded some type of honor by the Dalai Lama, the Unsung Hero Award. He works on one of President Obama's councils. He does great work in the community building kindness, and nobody really knows who he is. It's very hard to describe, very hard to, when I first started bringing him here, it was very hard to get people to come and be like, seriously, this guy's great. Be like, yeah, we never heard of him. We're not coming. But he's a kindness guru, and I took a class with him last summer, and one of the people that I met, his name was Kozo, and Kozo had written this story on the internet. And also on Kozo's blog, there's something about his background, and I'll share it with you, and it's public information because it's on the internet. But Kozo did not always have a very sweet life. He was abused as a child, and he, at one time, was a successful filmmaker and a successful teacher, professor. And in one fell swoop, within a span of months, he lost both of his jobs. His wife was on the verge of abuse. And the crowning blow was that he noticed that he was feeling like he was going to start perpetuating. Can I get that? Darn. It's Kozo. Kozo's calling, yes. Kozo's going to stop calling in just a moment. Not yet, though. Awesome. I love the timing of cell phones. So anyway, the worst thing that was happening to Kozo was that he felt like he was about to start perpetuating the cycle of abuse that had been put upon him. He was going to start hurting his children. And so that really smartened him up. He really wised up, and he took some great steps to change his life. He went into counseling, and he did much spiritual work on himself. And now he's a counselor. He's a counselor specializing in the field of helping men become compassionate. But Kozo, even with his work, he's been doing this for a while now, even with his work in compassion, he said that he had a blind spot. And this blind spot was humility. He said in this piece that he wrote that he really, really wanted to know the definition of humility, but he was too proud to look it up in the dictionary. So he decided to meditate instead. He decided to meditate and cultivate a skillful physical practice of humility, right? You know how that is. Sometimes it's not enough to have a great idea about how we want to be. We have to actually practice it. Well, he wanted to cultivate a skillful practice of humility. Hello, welcome. Thank you. So, he meditated, and he came up with the idea that he was going to start washing people's feet. It sounds lovely in theory. It sounds very biblical. He said he tried it out on his friends first. He'd go over to dinner at their house, and then he'd say, "Thank you for dinner. Now can I wash your feet?" And his friends would say, "No, thank you." And then he decided that he was going to up-level his commitment to foot washing. He had another friend who was doing a project, a food distribution to some homeless people, and he decided that he was going to bring his supplies to this group of homeless people and offer to wash their feet. He showed up. He brought his 2 sons with him. Oddly, a lot of the homeless people turned him down too. They didn't want to have their feet washed either. It's very humbling, isn't it? It's very hard to let somebody nurture you and love you in that way. The first time I had a pedicure, I was mortified. But anyway, finally, he encountered this man named Andrew. And Andrew said that he really wanted him to wash his feet. He really wanted Kozo to wash his feet. He said that Andrew peeled off his socks. That's not his real name, by the way. He peeled off his socks, and his feet were a mass of sores and blisters. His toes were fused together by grime. But Kozo put his water in the basin and put in his Epsom salts. And he said that he silently repeated over and over to himself the St. Francis prayer, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Make me an instrument of thy peace. Make me an instrument of thy peace. And he washed Andrew's feet, and bit by bit, they became clean and whole and more healed than they were. He finished, he dried them. And he said afterwards, Andrew could not stop thanking him. He thanked him over and over and over again. That may have been the only pair of feet he washed that day. But he said on his ride home, he asked his two sons, why do you think Daddy washed the man's feet? The one son said, because the feet were dirty. Innocence. But the other son said, I think it's because your washing the feet helped heal the man. And Kozo said, yes, that's right. But in his heart, he held a secret. He knew that perhaps washing the feet had helped heal the man, but he knew that really, in truth, the foot washing had healed himself. That's being a blessing. That's what I'm talking about. It's doing what you're called to do and being that in the world, going forth with great faith and great confidence, or sometimes even with a lack of faith and a lack of confidence, just doing something because you're called to do it and because you know it's the right thing to do. And let me backtrack just a bit. I was actually hesitant to tell that story about Kozo doing the foot washing because I suspect that if you're like me, you may be a spiritual overachiever. Anybody here a spiritual overachiever? Trying to do it right. Just because he did it, okay, that means I got to go to the grocery store, get some filtered water, get some Epsom salts, I got to get a basin, I got to go down and wash some homeless people's feet, whether they want it or not. Because that's what Kozo did, dang it, and I'm going to do that. This came up in the class that I was taking with Nipun over the summer, and one of the facilitators said that type of activity, although it feels vaguely comforting because it feels like we're striving to be something that we're not, and we all do that all the time, he said that it's actually evidence of a greedy mind, that it's evidence of trying to be more than you already are, and that's an affirmation that you think you're not enough. Whatever it is that you are called to do, it's going to come from you. It's not going to come from Kozo, and it's not going to come from what somebody else did. It's not going to come from what I say. It's going to come from your own internal process, your own inner wondering of how can I show up here and be a blessing. And so that's what I'm recommending to all of us today, is to just go within and take these words to heart and know that our willingness to be a blessing in the world is what changes the world. The change starts with us. It starts with rearranging our consciousness, and then our willingness to be that blessing in the world is what changes the world and makes it better for all of us, which inspires us to give even more. You know that if you've attended here a while, you know that I like Richard Rohr a lot, and one of the words that he uses a lot is liminal, which means a threshold. And it's often metaphorical, threshold experiences like any type of transition, crossing a threshold is a time of great vulnerability. So it's actually a time when we're really open to great power because power and vulnerability are often the same thing. Paradox there for you. So in my own quest for blessedness, I've been looking at thresholds, looking at literal thresholds. So when I cross the threshold to get into my car, I say, how will I be a blessing in my car? Will I get perturbed when somebody in front of me is driving too slowly? Probably. How will I respond to the universal sign of oneness that is often portrayed on the freeways? In case you didn't get it, it has to do with one of your fingers. Crossing the threshold to my car, how will I be a blessing? Crossing the threshold to our center, how will I be a blessing? Last week I talked about how it is a privilege to serve here, and may I always remember that when I cross the threshold. May we always remember that when we cross the threshold here, that it's a privilege to serve one another. When I cross the threshold of the grocery store, how will I be a blessing there? You know, I find that I'm looking for people to help. I'm looking to be helpful. I'm looking to be a blessing. It changes my consciousness so that I'm not thinking so much about what's wrong or about how much I have to do or any of the curse of too much activity or the curse of self-criticism. I'm thinking instead, how can I be of service? How can I help? How can I be a blessing? And it changes things. It changes things. The other day, in the practice of blessedness, I involved one of our center members, a colleague, Brock Travis, who is one of the ministry leaders here. He spoke about his meditation during the announcements. And we were planning on taking a walk together and talking, and in the midst of it, my car broke down in the midst of the travel. It wouldn't start. It did eventually start, but I told Brock, I can't really do a walk with you because I'm afraid my car is falling apart. So he drove me to Santa Paula Chevrolet, where I get my car fixed. And that thing, be a blessing, be a blessing, be a blessing. Even though this is an inconvenience, even though this is irritating, be a blessing. And it was such a joy because it was one of the things that I do when I get my car fixed is I bring the mechanics donuts. I just like to do that. And I was kind of embarrassed to ask Brock to do it for me. I gave him some money and said, can you help me be a blessing? Can you go buy the mechanics some donuts? And his whole face lit up. His whole face lit up. And he did. And he tipped the donut girl $1, he told me, and he brought me back the change. What a good guy. But that's what I'm talking about. You know, the mechanics know that they get donuts from me when they see them, and maybe they extend the blessing to somebody that serves them. Brock had the experience of sharing in that, and maybe he's looking for different ways to be a blessing. I know he is already. That's how he's made. And because we're talking about this in the center, we are looking for ways to be a blessing. We are constantly, our radar is out. We're not so much asking, what is the world going to give to me? What is the world going to give to me? What can I take from this situation? We're asking, no, what can I give to this situation? How can I be the blessing that I long to see in the world? You get that? You get how exciting that is? You get how transformative that is? That is the power in the presence that changes the world. That is the power in the presence that moves us into our greatness. You know, for a long time, metaphysics has kind of fallen into a trap, and it's a natural trap to fall into. All religion falls into traps and sort of dogmatic interpretations. But so much of the time, I've observed that, like in certain teachings, like the Secret, for example, a lot of people use that to say, what can I get from the world? What can I get from the world? Just by using the power of the thought, what is the world going to give me to make me happy? And you see how sort of off base that is, right? It's not the world's job to make us happy. It's our job to make the world happy, right? So I'm going to close with a, kind of an old New Thought saying that I want to change up for us. Many of you have probably heard the saying, I think they used to say it in this church before I came here. It was part of the ending affirmations. Something wonderful is happening to me today. Remember that one? You know that one? And that is lovely, and it's true. Something wonderful is happening to you today because God is omnipresent, and God is happening to you right now in everything that you're doing and everything that you see and everything that is. But can we take that up a notch? Can we raise that up a level? And instead of saying, something wonderful is happening to me today, can we say instead, I am something wonderful happening to the world right now? I am something wonderful happening in the world right now. And you know that I am is not the little me, it is the big me. It is the I am. It is the love as God loves. It is the power and the presence of the Most High. It is the oneness. It is that dream that we have. It is that beautiful, beautiful inspiration to be the blessing. That is happening through us today, right now. That is happening in the world when we allow it. That is happening as long as we say it is happening. So, my only other question for you is, what are you going to do with these words? How will you find your unique way to be a blessing? Turn within, meditate, pray, and God will show you the way. And the good news is that if we all do it together, the world becomes a sweeter, deeper place. And just like Martin, we have a dream. Just like Gandhi, we create peace. Like Mother Teresa, we live in love. Let's be the blessing. Let's do that now. Let us pray. Thank you. And so I turn within and just let go. I let go of all of my ideas, all of my preconceived notions of what spirit is. I just allow the essence of love that is filling this room right here and right now to fill my heart. I am one with the power and presence of love. I am one with the life of God. God's life is my life right here and right now. And I live in that spaciousness, in that expansion, without even really knowing what it means. I live in that life that is the power, the presence, the goodness, the grace, the blessedness of Spirit. And I allow that life to live through me. Right here and right now, I surrender. I let the blessedness of God have its way. I choose to let go of any perception of against and any perception of being cursed or victimized. I choose to let go of worry or concern or criticism. And I simply allow the grace and the goodness, the all good that is always present, no matter what. We know that. No matter what, there's always good present. There's always a gift to be found. There's always a way to be a blessing in any situation. And so right here, right now, I commit to that way of being in the world. That I am the change I wish to see. That I am the blessing I wish to be. And I stand in solidarity with the people in this room, with the people in my heart, with the people in my life, with spiritual people doing good work everywhere. I bless all paths to God. I bless churches, temples, mosques, ashrams. I bless atheists and fundamentalists. I bless all beings. And with a heart that is so filled with love and so filled with blessedness, I say thank you. Thank you for the transformation that has occurred here, not only in our individual lives, but in our collective lives. Thank you, God. Thank you for allowing us to be the blessing. With a heart that is filled with love and filled with gratitude, I release these words into the divine mystery. And together we say, and so it is.
It's a long, long road with many a winding turn that leads us to who knows where, who knows where. But I'm strong enough to carry him. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. So on we go. His welfare is my concern. No burden is he to bear. We'll get there. And I know he will not encumber me, 'cause he ain't heavy, he's my brother.